Experience Karen Hunter
in a completely different way.
Karen Hunter is awesome. The podcast.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're gonna love me in Karen Hunter is Awesome. Hey, this is Karen Hunter, host of the Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM's Urban View. Karen Hunter is Awesome is an actual podcast to bring heat and energy and knowledge and power, a 1-2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Tell the truth. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You will not be disappointed. So tell us about this whiteness.
I think that, you were asking, how do we get people to remember? A part of that is definitely understanding our own history and reading. Unfortunately, we are in, a social ecosystem where people don't read, where digital distraction rules, and it's all done on purpose. I mean, these apps, social media, these things are designed by techno-fascists who collaborate with neuroscientists and developmental psychologists who understand addiction and how to keep you engaged. And they understand dopamine, that reward system. It's like drugs. It's the same sort of things that happen when someone takes an illicit drug happens when we're, engaging with these apps. And what happens is it changes your neurodynamics, how your brain works, your ability to sit with a document, your ability to think critically, to collaborate with others, to study, to understand, to question. This is all on purpose. It's on purpose. So we're up against that. That's a different kind of conversation to talk about how our brains have been hacked and how we've been intentionally dumbed down so that we can't remember. We can't even hold on, to a thought for very long or, maintain, attention spans beyond, that of a goldfish. This is what the science tells us. But before we even get into that, I think we need, as a people, need to understand what whiteness is. And we need to really internalize a hard truth that whiteness is irreparable because it was never meant to be human. It was constructed not as a culture, not as an ethnicity, but as a weapon. White supremacy doesn't even care about white people. It likes white people that obey. It likes white people who believe it's lies about supremacy, but as soon as they can't serve anymore, as soon as they can't be of use, it eats them with the same ferocity that has been eating everybody else for centuries. So whiteness is a tool of domination. It's a false identity built for the sole purpose of hierarchy, extraction, and control. It has no folklore, no cuisine, no shared language, no true homeland. It's not German or Irish or Italian or Polish. It's the erasure of all that. Whiteness is the cost of the ticket to power, paid for by abandoning memory, culture, kinship in exchange for proximity to supremacy. White people need to remember too. It's not just us. Whiteness feeds on contrast. It needs an other, which is blackness, brownness, indigenous folks, to justify itself. Without someone to dominate, it collapses under its own emptiness. That's why it can't exist without borders, without prisons, police, red lines, wars, colonies, and propaganda. It's not a culture. It's a cage. And the thing about cages is they break the people locked inside of them too. So you can't reform whiteness because it wasn't built for good. You can't educate it out of harm because it thrives on dissonance. You can't appeal to it because empathy is incompatible with its design. It is a system built to hoard land, resources, bodies, narratives, futures, and every attempt to fix it, DEI, diversity trainings, anti-racism workshops, performative allies, people playing dead on yoga mats, talking about they can't breathe. All of it just reinforces power by pretending that it's redeemable, but it isn't. It can't be better. It can only be dismantled. And let me say this, and I think this is the gag. White people are afraid of that truth because deep down inside they know it. They know that to destroy whiteness is not to destroy them, but to force them to face the humanity that they've traded away, the identities that they erased, the power that they misused. Um, to unlearn whiteness is to grieve, to lose the illusion of superiority, to step into history as perpetrators, not saviors. And that's the reckoning that most white folks aren't ready for. So, no, whiteness, it cannot be repaired. We need to start from that. But we can build new ways of being outside of its shadow. We can reclaim what it tried to steal. We can remember who we were before they told us who we weren't. And I think we can dream forward, not toward inclusion, but toward liberation. So that's my sort of take on this. We have to start from a different place, and white people have to be part of that remembering process as well, because they seem to have forgotten where they came from, that Europe did not send its best here. And so when we watch a man intentionally destroy the stock market, of course he is. He is the biological continuation of the criminals and peasants that arrived on these shores hundreds of years ago. He is a biological echo of all of that. So I'll
Mm.
stop there.
Well, the market bounced back. It's a record amount. And I said again, you depress something on
And you fix
purpose
it.
and then you
You-
fix it, but you broke it. You broke
You're a
it and then you
hero.
fix it. And then, yes, you claim victory. And then people are happy because their 401ks are up and they're sorry, but it's all manufactured. At some point we want something I want something that's real. I don't know. I hate living in a place where so many people are willing to live in fantasy. The realness is it will set you free. What is the truth? Will set you free is
The
what they
truth
say,
shall
right?
set you free.
Why do we run from it? Because it is painful. It is painful to admit. It
Mm-hmm.
was painful for me to admit that my parents were wrong in beating us, or
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get many spankings. That my grandmother was wrong for beating my uncle until she broke his hip. It's hard for me to admit that, but he grew up to be very violent, and he died in a bar, stabbed to death by six people. I don't know that that domino didn't start in that house. And I do know that when we were whipped until we said our names were Toby, that there was something epigenetically that flipped in us, those of us carrying these names through bondage, carrying the rape through bondage, all of the things that we carry in our bodies epigenetically, we have responsibility to break the chains. We have to. But it requires that pain, what you call grief, Dr. Patton.
Mm-hmm.
You better say
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, we have to grieve the notions that we've been implanted with and be okay with
I,
that.
Can I just say something? I always get excited when I hear somebody use the word epigenetic because that's the nerd in me. I love that you went there. I think that Black people especially need to understand how hitting children, I don't care what semantics you use, spanking, whipping, beating, or whatever, it's all violence. And a child's brain and immune system and nervous system doesn't privilege the hitter's semantics. It's violence and it's trauma. And so whipping a child becomes epigenetic when the trauma it causes doesn't just end with the pain or fear in the moment. It changes the biology of the child and also their offspring. So we have, recent research that shows that you can pass that trauma on for at least 3 generations. So
Wow.
if you think about enslaved women, so when an enslaved woman was pregnant, 3 people shared that pregnancy: the pregnant woman herself, the child in utero, and that unborn child as a cell. So whatever environmental stresses, trauma that that pregnant woman was enduring, that passes on to at least two more generations. So trauma isn't just psychological; it's cellular. It gets
Yeah.
under the skin, into the nervous system, into the DNA. And when children are repeatedly subjected to violence, and not just physical violence, but also verbal violence as well, especially by the people who are supposed to love and protect them, it leaves a molecular residue that can echo across, generations. And a lot of people don't know what epigenetics are because I don't think people explain it to them. So, epigenetics it's the study of how environmental factors like stress, abuse, trauma. It could be neighborhood violence. It could be all these different environmental cues. Switch genes on and off without actually changing the DNA sequence that you're born with. So we need to think about genes like light switches that they're built into the house, but trauma decides which ones get flipped. So when a child is whipped, especially in their early developmental windows, particularly ages 0 to 3, when there's this rapid brain development, because 85% of the brain develops by age 3. 85%. This is before people really learn how to talk, develop moral cognition and such, right? And so their stress response systems go haywire. So this thing called cortisol, which is a stress hormone, floods the brain. Then you have this thing called the amygdala, which is basically the brain's fear center, becomes hyperactive. Other parts of the brain, like the hippocampus, which you need for memory and for learning, it shrinks. So we wonder why some of our kids aren't doing well in school, right? Why can't this kid pay attention, do what they're told to do? Well, you started popping them when they were 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. And then you got the prefrontal cortex. This is where it's all impulse control and reasoning and making good decisions and assessing things properly. These things don't develop properly. So all these people are like, these kids today, these kids today are horrible. They do this, that, and the other. And it's like, you built their brains. You built the environments that shape their behavior, right? And these outcomes that we're seeing. So I think we need to have like these public health conversations in our communities to talk about what this parenting practice is actually doing to individual children, to our families, to our communities, and why we're in this socio-political moment where there's such apathy and learned helplessness because we didn't give our children the best tools so that their brains could develop at optimal capacity to solve some problems.
Experience Karen Hunter
in a completely different way.
Karen Hunter is awesome. The podcast.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're gonna love me in Karen Hunter is Awesome. Hey, this is Karen Hunter, host of the Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM's Urban View. Karen Hunter is Awesome is an actual podcast to bring heat and energy and knowledge and power, a 1-2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Tell the truth. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You will not be disappointed.